Hey, truth seekers, welcome back. Zach here. Yesterday, July 21st, 2016, the GOP convention concluded. It ended with Donald Trump, the presidential hopeful, giving his 74-minute speech. We're going to talk about when his speech began and when it ended. Truly signatures of the Masons and Zionist banker tyrants who control Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton as the puppets they are. The purpose of this video is to help people see just how rigged the game is and to understand that whoever becomes president in November, it doesn't have a thing to do with the voting populace. It has everything to do with the Masons and Zionists running the show from the shadows. Look at Donald Trump's front page quote on CNN last night. I alone can fix it. Talk about an egomaniac. Talk about a quote that just shows what a joke this is. Anybody who's paying attention realizes that one man in office, even if he's the president, cannot do anything. Look at Barack Obama. All of his moves, his measures, his actions, they have been blocked by the Republican-dominated Congress that has filibustered all of his motions. The president can only do so much. So for Donald Trump to get up there and say, he can fix all these problems all by himself, it's just nothing but hearsay and empty rhetoric given to a very gullible American public. So the speech, it began at 10:19 Eastern Time and it concluded at 11:33 Eastern Time, exactly 74 minutes later. Masonic and Jewish equals 74. The entire time Donald Trump has been running for president, 74 has been coded in headlines about him, something I've shown countless times. Type Zachary K. Hubbard, Donald Trump in your YouTube search. I've put out so many videos on Donald Trump exposing what a puppet he is by the numbers again and again. So here he is. He was coming out at 10:17. In numerology terms, that's a lot like 117. We've been talking about all year, the 11:7, the 7-11 coding with Donald Trump. For whatever reason, they continue to operate Donald Trump by the sequence of these numbers. 117 comes out. He kisses his daughter. I have to admit, his daughter's speech, it sounded better than most speeches you hear. His daughter's actually a good speaker. So he comes out, he claps for more than a minute. He's at the podium at 10:18. He doesn't say his first words until 10:19 though. With regards to 10:18, what I want to point out is something from an earlier video. He put out this book earlier this year, Crippled America, How to Make America Great Again. And he put that book out November 3rd, 11/3. Remember, mainstream equals 113, dishonest equals 113, Scottish equals 113. His other is Scottish Rite Freemasonry, the branch of Freemasonry that dominates our government. Trump over in Scotland for Brexit. Anyway, his book comes out on 113, Crippled America, How to Make America Great Again. That phrase, How to Make America Great Again, has gematria of 118. And his first book that he ever put out was November 1st, 1987, a date with 118 numerology. Remember the 87 Clinton connections. Interesting. As I continue to say, everything we're living out was scripted decades ago. Donald Trump was probably told as a young man that he would someday be doing this. We are living out a long, ongoing script. Anyway, just wanted to show the significance of 118 in both of Donald Trump's books. This year, the election will be on 11/8, November 8th. His first words came out of his mouth at 10:19. And, I sat here and I listened to the entire Donald Trump speech. It was very painful. I cannot stand this person. 74 minutes of rhetoric from him was awful. What I noticed the whole time his mouth was moving is what a funny face he has. He has a very tiny mouth, and what it reminds me of is Conan O'Brien when he used to have his late night show. He'd always put up the faces on the TV screen, and then he'd have somebody talking. You'd just see the mouth moving, nothing else on the face would move. It'd be somebody else's mouth. Typically, it was Michael Jackson, making fun of Michael Jackson all the time. Donald Trump's face just looks like that naturally. Just like the TV screen character from the Conan O'Brien show with his tiny little mouth and nothing but bullshit spewing out of it. With regards to his speech ending at 11:33, 74 minutes after it began, 10:19 to 11:33, 74 minutes. Cleveland equals 33, Masonry 33, secrecy 33, order 33, federal equals 33. He's trying to become the leader of the federal government, the president. 11 plus 33 also sums to 44. July 21st, 16, 7 plus 21 plus 16 has 44 date numerology. Donald Trump's trying to become the 44th person to be president. Obama's number 44, but only the 43rd person. Trump and Hillary trying to become the 44th person to be president. So Donald Trump, he brought up September 11th, keeping America safe, saying how the country has become unsafe under the Democrats. It's really just such empty rhetoric. I mean, who did 9/11 happen under? The Republican Party? Yeah, that's right, it did. And then it was the Republicans who started the needless wars that are now blamed for creating terrorism and extremism throughout the world. This was all Republican wrongdoing. And I'm not here to lobby for the Democrats. The Democrats are spineless filth as well. The Democrats have been in power at the same time, and they haven't stopped anything. But it is the Republicans who've gotten us into this shitstorm. You know, allowing 9/11 to happen, creating the needless wars that have built up more terrorism. Of course, this is all within the mainstream narrative, which is all bullshit. But I'm just saying things within the mainstream because that's where people's minds are. If your mind's within the mainstream, you need to recognize 9/11 happened under the Republicans. They created the war. The war has spread the terrorism. They also created the bad banking decisions that caused the economy to collapse, which has made worker conditions for most Americans worse ever since. You know, this was all the Republican wrongdoing. And then they want to come and point the finger at how awful the Democrats have been. The Democrats have just maintained the shit. It's the Republicans that made everything worse, you know, if you follow that mainstream narrative. Anyway, Donald Trump bringing up 9/11. His business career began in 1968, the same year World Trade Center construction began, the same year 911 was made the National Emergency Dialing Code, the same year George W. Bush graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones, 33 years before 2001. I want to show you this. Donald John Trump, his full name in gematria sums to 68, just like the year. Donald John Trump, the big way, sums to 185, also like World Trade Center. World Trade Center, the big way, 185. Donald John Trump, men connected to 68, or a man connected to 68, a building connected to 1968. Remember the movie Monsters, Inc. came out right after September 11th, had all sorts of tributes to 9/11. The motto throughout the movie was, "We scare because we care," gematria of 185. The point I'm trying to make is the powers that be, they have planned out our future long in advance. You know, they've built structures to tear them down for an agenda. They're building up a character, Donald Trump, for an agenda, and I really think Donald Trump will end up being very much like the World Trade Centers used for an agenda. I suspect that Donald Trump will be shot in a staged event before the election. If I'm wrong about that and he somehow becomes the next president, I guarantee you he gets shot while in office. And it will be used for more war narrative. A lot of parallels here between Donald Trump and the World Trade Centers. And last night while he was giving his speech, an announcement was made about the World Trade Centers in New York, which we'll talk about. September 11th, if you write out September 11th in gematria, it sums to 77, just like World Trade Center the small way. The Washington Meridian, which cuts through D.C., is the 77th Meridian. On 9/11, Flight 77 hit the Pentagon on the 77th Meridian. The Pentagon's 77 feet tall. All these things come together. Think about New York and Washington, D.C., the most heavily hit cities on 9/11. There was also the crash in a Pennsylvania field, the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue. They said that plane might have been destined for the White House. Trump went to school in Pennsylvania at the Wharton School. The date Trump was born is also a date with 85 numerology. Reminds of Hillary. Think about Trump getting assassinated, Hillary becoming the president, something like that. This is what I'm imagining how it's going to play out. I could be wrong, but this seems to be what's being foreshadowed. Born on a date with 40 numerology, United States equals 40, Ronald Reagan, the 40th president, Donald Trump keeps comparing himself to Ronald Reagan. He just turned 70 years old. 70 has gematria of 110 like president. From yesterday's speech until the election is 110 days. That's interesting. Where he went to school in Pennsylvania, Wharton School has gematria of 63. If you sum 1 through 63, it sums to 2016. Could it be a tribute to his school, him being the presidential frontrunner for the Republican Party? Very possible. So while the speech was going on, there was the announcement this symbol is going to return to the World Trade Center complex. It was damaged on 9/11. It's been repaired. Now they're going to bring it back. This was news last night. Remember the movie Fight Club, which came out just before 9/11? It ends with a city skyline falling in free fall. It has to do with international banking, World Trade Center. You might recall there's a symbol like this in Fight Club, and they destroy it in the movie. Predictive programming. That monument is called the Sphere for Plaza Fountain. And doesn't that just sound like a forced name? Sphere for Plaza Fountain. Well, the reason they gave it that name is because it has 113 gematria. The World Trade Center is first approved on March 11th, 11/3, 1961. Year Obama was born, year Lincoln took office. Not Lincoln, Kennedy, excuse me. JFK became president in 61. The architect for that symbol is Fritz Koenig, German architect. Today a story in Germany by the numbers. But notice the gematria of 68 again. 68, just like the year the World Trade Center construction began. The monument had been moved to Battery Park, now Liberty Park. Interesting that both of those have gematria of 137, the 33rd prime number. The World Trade Centers lasted from 68 to 2001, 33 years. 33, always the number of Freemason focus. The GOP Convention in Cleveland. Cleveland equals 33. His speech ending at 11:33 last night. In his speech, he talked about the woman who was shot in San Francisco, supposedly by an illegal immigrant. I have a video from last year. They said the assassin's name was Juan Francisco Sanchez Lopez, a name in gematria that sums to 113, a ridiculous name, a stereotypical name. The story was very ridiculous. A federal agent lost his gun on the pier in San Francisco. An illegal immigrant found it, picked it up, and accidentally shot a woman. Story came out right after Donald Trump said that illegal immigrants are doing all of the raping in the United States of America, blaming it on Mexicans, who mostly come here for work, and who mostly have to come here because of bad trade bills, which Donald Trump is speaking out against, but he's not acknowledging that those trade bills were created by the Republican Party. So anyway, he talked about that story, which was completely fake, made up, political agenda. Donald Trump all year has been used as a stooge to talk about narratives, and then days after his remarks, those stories have transpired in the media, from the shooting in San Francisco to the Belgium airport hoax. Belgium 33. Story by the numbers. Remember that? The Belgium bombing of March 22nd, right after Donald Trump said Belgium and terrorism. Anyhow, he also brought up this girl supposedly killed earlier this year by an illegal immigrant in Omaha. Her name was Sarah Root. The name Root in gematria 68, like Donald John Trump. 47 for Sarah, like the word president. Ohio equals 47. The only other state that does, in simple English gematria, Nevada. The two first presidential debates for Democrats and Republicans were in Ohio and Nevada, by the numbers. Sarah Root sums to 115. So does the word killing in Jewish gematria. So does Freemasons, the plural. Sarah Root supposedly died January 31st, 2016. A date with 68 numerology, connected to the last name Root, a number connected to Donald Trump. Donald Trump, Pythagorean gematria sums to 48, also connected to this date. It's all propaganda, meant to get at people's emotions, meant to dupe people into thinking what Donald Trump's saying is legit, it's right. You know, all of these politicians, what they do is they try to paint a picture of petty criminals, meaningless crime, crime that comes from the sick society we live in, while never paying attention to the real criminals in high places who maintain this culture of sickness. who create this world that is full of these problems. Donald Trump, New World Order agent, very transparent. If he wasn't, he wouldn't be on the TV, because the only people on the TV are people in the New World Order agenda. And Donald Trump, his face has been on the TV like nothing any of us have seen in our lifetime for the last year. From the date of that story, January 31st to July 21st is 173 days. The 40th prime number, again, United States equals 40. Much of the night, they had up this quote, Trump vows to restore law and order, create jobs. Gematria of 173, the 40th prime, propaganda for the United States. And in these images, they're showing him doing the A-OK. A lot of people on YouTube, anytime they see that, they say, oh, there it is, 666. That means they're in Freemasonry. But I'm not someone that promotes that message, because as someone who's actually been outside and doesn't just sit in front of my computer all day, I realize that when people speak, they do that with their hands a lot. And I honestly do that naturally, speaking myself. Is it possible that Donald Trump is doing that as a signal? Sure, it's possible. But a lot of people in this world, they make that with their fingers when they're talking. In my older videos where I just film myself the whole time, sometimes I do that with my hands, and then I'd have people going, oh, you're a shill doing 666. A lot of you need to step outside, enter the real world, look at when other people speak, look at how many people in the world do this. If you think this is a sign that you're in the Illuminati, that means that almost everyone is in it, and that isn't the case. That said, Donald Trump is a New World Order agent stooge. It's possible he's signaling that, but I don't give that any weight when people do that with their fingers. It doesn't mean anything. When you start putting it up by your eye, that's a whole different ballgame. And don't accuse me of doing it there. I'm just showing you. When people start doing that for magazines, photo shoots, that's a different thing. Touching your fingers, speaking, that's a natural habit for a lot of us. So here's some more Donald. I am your voice. You're certainly not my voice, Donald. I am your voice has gematria of 156 and 66, just like 33 when you write it out. This was in Cleveland. Federal, Masonry, secrecy. Special numbers here. And Donald Trump himself might become front and center of a planned false flag for agenda. Can you imagine if they say a Black Lives Matter person assassinates Donald Trump? They're trying to start a race war. Narratives like this could cause it. 33, 156, false flag numbers. Here was the Fox News coverage. Donald Trump, when he began, he said he humbly and gratefully accepted the nomination. There's nothing humble or grateful about this guy. He's an arrogant prick, silver spoon in the mouth, no touch with reality. Said back in 68, his dad gave him $1 million to start his business like it was no big deal. You know what $1 million was in 1968? A lot of money. Donald Trump, a rich asshole. And too bad that we live in a nation where so many poor idiots support these rich assholes, support their cheap talk. Humbly and gratefully has the gematria of 227. 22 divided by 7 equals 3.14, the number for pi. When you write out 22 divided by 7 in gematria, it sums to 314. Number they love to code, having to do with cycles and circles. Also a number connected to assassinations. Ronald Reagan had the assassination attempt on him March 30th. What's 3 plus 30? 33. At 2:27 in the afternoon, or 33 till 3. Major hoax. Humbly and gratefully, the small way sums to 83, like leap year, like elections in leap year, presidential elections, that is. Also interesting, the GOP convention began July 18th, or 18/7, a lot like 187. From the start of the convention to Inauguration Day is 187 days. And 187 is significant because the first recognized president, the Freemason, the 33rd degree Freemason, was George Washington, which equals 187. And the small way, George Washington, equals 88. The name Trump, the big way, equals 88, just like Elizabeth, the current queen. And I bring that up because Donald Trump came into Queen. Remember, they played Queen for his introduction on July 18th. And that was exactly 88 days after the Queen's birthday. I have a longer video on it with more information, but I just want you to see how synced up all of this is, from the 74-minute speech to the date the convention began, to the location, to the upcoming Inauguration Day. They're all tributes by the numbers. Everything's planned. My research, I lean towards Hillary being the next president, but I have always acknowledged that it could end up being Donald Trump. He would be a perfect symbol for the race war and hate that the media, the Zionists, the Masons are purposefully provoking people with. Donald Trump is the race war hate candidate. Anybody who doesn't think that's true is an ignoramus. You know, a lot of people keep coming here when I make these comments and saying I'm ignorant. How could you possibly say I'm ignorant? Donald Trump has made bigoted remarks about everybody, every group, even the physically handicapped. In the past in this nation, had anybody made any of the remarks Donald Trump has said, they would have been destroyed by the media. Howard Dean couldn't even howl, you know? Woohoo! That ruined his presidential hopes from what we were told in the media. Donald Trump, he's been able to make all sorts of disgusting, racist, unfounded, bigoted remarks, including saying Mexicans are doing all the raping. You know, I heard him last night say that he would never condone violence. You know, there was a story of a black man getting beat at one of his rallies, and he said the guy deserved it. So what is it, Donald Trump? You don't condone violence, or you say people deserve a beating and a purposeful race war story? Donald Trump is just a perfect, shining example of what a politician is. I'm tired of people saying this guy's not a politician. This is a guy who's not accountable for his words, says one thing one day, the complete opposite the next, back and forth. You know? He's just a small, tiny mouth with big piles of shit flowing out of it. Until next time, true seekers.